And I am Jyotsna Kumar. And on the show today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has replaced the Chief of General Staff of the Armed Forces as Kiev's frontline troops continue to struggle. The Ukrainian military, which has grown since mobilizing its repel Russia's February 2022 invasion, is in the process of reorganizing its army corps to improve coordination. But why replace the chief, and who is the new chief? We'll bring you more on that.
Also on World DNA from West Asia, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that he was seeking to dismiss the head of Israel's internal security agency. Netanyahu and Shin Bet head Ronen Bar have been engaged in a public spat in recent weeks over reforms to the agency. At the same time, the Shin Bet has been conducting an investigation into some of Netanyahu's aides for allegedly receiving payments from Qatar, even as the Gaza war raged. We'll bring you all the details on that front as well. This is World DNA. Let's start with the headlines.
Houthis say ready to meet escalation with Escalation as it claims to have attacked a U.S. aircraft carrier group in the Red Sea with a barrage of missiles and drones. And this comes a day after airstrikes on Yemen kills at least 53.
وقطعه البحرية ستكون مستهدفة.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says he is seeking to dismiss the head of Israel's internal security agency, Ronen Bar. Bar calls the move political, says the premier expects personal loyalty.
More than 200 alleged Venezuelan gang members deported from the U.S. to a prison in El Salvador, despite a U.S. judge blocking the removals.
Ukrainian President Zelensky appoints new Chief of General Staff as the country looks to restructure and strengthen its military amid ongoing combat in Russia's Kursk region and increasing pressure in Donetsk.
North Macedonia police detained 10 people after a fire at a nightclub kills at least 59 and injures about 155 others.
India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval holds bilateral talks with U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, chairs a conclave of top global intelligence czars, focusing on ways to boost cooperation in dealing with various security challenges.
China's security regulator is ramping up efforts to combat fake stock market information, especially misinformation spread via AI. Authorities will collaborate with police and cyberspace regulators to crack down on market manipulation.
Newcastle United have ended a 70-year wait for a domestic title. The Magpies defeated Liverpool 2-1 to lift the EFL Cup at Wembley.
In our top story on World DNA, Yemen's Houthis have claimed without evidence that they targeted the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman and its warships with ballistic missiles and drones.
This was in response to American airstrikes, which were carried out earlier. In a televised address, the group's military spokesperson, Yahya Sarya, warned that it would continue attacks on Israeli ships in the Red Sea if Israel continues to block aid into Gaza.
نفذت القوات المسلحة بعون الله تعالى.
The armed forces, with the help of God Almighty, carried out a qualitative military operation targeting the American aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman and its accompanying warships in the northern Red Sea, using 18 ballistic and cruise missiles and drones in a joint operation carried out by the Missile Force, Drone Air Force, and the Naval Forces.
نفذتها القوة الصاروخية.
Now, in a televised address, Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi warned that the group would continue to target American warships, aircraft carriers, and naval assets in the Red Sea.
The Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to target all American warships in the Red Sea and in the Arabian Sea in retaliation to the aggression against our country.
بالطائرات المسيرة وبالصواريخ.
Meanwhile, U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz has said that the American airstrikes targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. In an interview to ABC, Waltz said that the current strikes were different than those carried out under the Biden administration.
The difference is these were not kind of pinprick back and forth, what ultimately proved to be feckless attacks. This was an overwhelming response that actually targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. And the difference here is, one, going after the Houthi leadership, and two, holding Iran responsible.
In a telephone call with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov urged the U.S. to halt strikes in Yemen and instead engage in political dialogue to find a solution. The American airstrikes have killed at least 31 people so far.
Meanwhile, the impasse over the next phase of the ceasefire in Gaza continues, and according to a statement by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's office, an Israeli negotiating team is discussing the hostages issue with Egyptian mediators. The comments come a day after Israeli strikes in northern Gaza, which killed at least 14 Palestinians over the past 24 hours. Adding to internal political turmoil, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu announced that he will seek to dismiss Ronen Bar, who is the head of Israel's internal security service, Shin Bet.
Now, in a statement, Netanyahu said that ongoing distrust made it possible for him to continue working with Bar.
Citizens of Israel, we are in the midst of a war for our very existence, a war on 7 fronts. At all times, but especially in an existential war like this, the Prime Minister must have full confidence in the head of the Shin Bet Domestic Security Service. But unfortunately, the reality is the opposite. I do not have such trust. I have an ongoing lack of trust in the head of the Shin Bet Security Service, a distrust that has only grown over time.
The Shin Bet had recently issued a report accepting responsibility for its failures around the October 7th attack and had also criticized Netanyahu, saying that the government policies were among its causes.
All right, moving to other global news, more than 200 alleged Venezuelan gang members have been deported from the U.S. to El Salvador.
And this is despite a U.S. judge blocking their removals. In a post on social media, El Salvadoran President Bukele said that 238 members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua had arrived in the Central American country, along with 23 members of the international MS-13 gang. On Sunday morning, neither the U.S. government nor El Salvador has identified the detainees, nor provided details of their alleged criminality or gang affiliation.
A federal judge's order had prevented the Trump administration from invoking a centuries-old wartime law to justify the deportations. But by then, the flights had already departed. Video released by the El Salvadoran government shows the deportees shackled at their hands and ankles, struggling to walk as officers pushed their heads down to have them bent at the waist.
The video also showed the men being transported to prison in a large convoy of buses guarded by police and military vehicles and at least one helicopter. The men were shown kneeling on the ground as their heads were shaved before they changed into the prison's all-white uniform, knee-length shorts, t-shirts, socks and rubber clogs. And they were placed in cells at the CECOT facility, the centerpiece of Salvadoran President Bukele's push to pacify his once violence-racked country through tough police measures and limits on basic rights.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who negotiated the deal to house the migrants in El Salvador, defended the move. In a social media post, he confirmed the transfer of over 250 members of Tren de Aragua gang to El Salvador, touting the arrangement as both effective and cost-saving for U.S. taxpayers.
Meanwhile, the Venezuelan government has strongly condemned the use of the Trump administration's wartime declaration to deport its citizens. Venezuela has called it a dark episode in human history reminiscent of slavery and Nazi concentration camps. The gang known as Tren de Aragua originated in an infamously lawless prison in the central state of Aragua and accompanied an exodus of millions of Venezuelans, the overwhelming majority of whom were seeking better living conditions after their nation's economy came undone last decade. The 30-day ceasefire deal between Russia and Ukraine is yet to be accepted by Russian President Vladimir Putin.
But the talks leading to the proposed ceasefire deal have excluded Trump's Russia-Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg. The U.S. President Trump has limited Kellogg's role to special envoy to Ukraine from special envoy to Russia and Ukraine. Now, according to reports, U.S. President sidelined Kellogg from peace talks in Jeddah and Riyadh after Russia demanded to exclude him, citing bias towards Ukraine. Reports also suggest Kellogg did not attend the U.S.-Russia summit in Riyadh on demand of Russian President Vladimir Putin.
In Kellogg's absence, Trump's West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff took the lead. Witkoff had presented the ceasefire proposal to Vladimir Putin in Moscow, and Russian president accepted the U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine, but he has emphasized that the terms are yet to be worked out.
U.S. President has shown a willingness to broker a peace deal with Russia, but for how much time a Russian president will be able to dictate his terms before Trump puts his foot down remains a big question.
And for everybody concerned, it's an honor to be with you. Thank you. Thank you.
And while staying with the story, Russia will seek guarantees that NATO will exclude Ukraine from membership and that Ukraine remain neutral in any peace deal.
And this is according to a Russian deputy foreign minister. Speaking to a Russian media outlet, Alexander Grushko said Moscow will demand that ironclad security guarantees become part of this agreement, adding that part of these guarantees should be the neutral status of Ukraine and the refusal of NATO countries to accept it into the alliance. And this as US President Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin are expected to speak in the coming days as talks continue over a possible ceasefire in the 3-year war. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said it could be as soon as this week. The US had proposed the halt in fighting after talks in Saudi Arabia. While Ukraine has agreed, Russia has given no clear answer as yet. Instead, Putin has listed conditions and raised serious questions.
Meanwhile, fighting continues and Moscow has regained swathes of land this week in the Kursk border region. In Russia, 3 civilians were injured on Saturday night when Ukrainian drones struck in the town of Gubkin and the village of Dogo in the Belgorod region. On the Ukrainian side, a residential building caught fire and a house was damaged on Saturday night in the northern region of Chernihiv.
Ukrainian President Zelensky appoints new chief of general staff as the country looks to restructure and strengthen its military amid ongoing combat in Russia's Kursk region and increasing pressure in Donetsk. At least 8 people were confirmed dead in a pileup involving more than 70 vehicles in interstate highway in America's Sherman County in Kansas.
Now, the deadly crash was caused by a severe dust storm that reduced visibility, leading to multiple crashes. Take a look at these visuals. Now, the devastating fire that killed 59 people in a North Macedonia nightclub could be related to corruption.
And this is according to the country's Prime Minister, as the country has declared 7 days of national mourning. North Macedonia's Prime Minister, Mikoski, said that an investigation found that the club's license was not legitimate. He added that the document issued by the officials from Economy Ministry was illegal, and Mikoski went on to say that there were many questions to be answered and promised accountability at all levels.
At the moment, we have information that at the time of the disaster, the nightclub had a falsified license issued in March 2024 for a bribe. It is a document for the work of a cabaret which was issued illegally with a legal stamp of the Economy Ministry and signed by the then officials of the same ministry. There are many questions there that the investigation should answer.
At least 155 people were injured in deadly nightclub fire. The authorities have suggested that the death toll can rise further as 20 of the injured remain in critical condition. Several injured people were also brought to Bulgaria for treatment. The deputy director of Sofia's Pirogov Hospital stated that Bulgaria had offered to treat 14 seriously injured patients.
Bulgaria has made a commitment to accept 14 patients. 8 of them will be admitted to our hospital. The first 5 have already arrived by military plane. 3 of the 5 are connected to an artificial respiration apparatus.
More than 1,000 mostly young fans were in the nightclub to see the hip-hop duo DNK, who are quite popular in the country. According to Interior Minister, the blaze began around 2:35 a.m. local time. He added that the authorities have issued arrest warrants for 4 people in connection with the blaze. As per reports, police has also detained 10 people.
A national arrest warrant has been issued for 4 people. The Ministry of the Interior is conducting operations in coordination with the Public Prosecutor's Office. For its part, the Ministry of the Economy is responsible for providing documentation concerning the nightclub in question and also the people linked to it.
The fire was the worst tragedy in recent memory to befall the landlocked nation, whose population is less than 2 million, and the latest in a slew of deadly nightclub fires around the world. A vigil was held in Kokani to mourn the victims of the tragedy.
I was there. I was witnessing all the situation when the children and the dead were pulling out. What can I say to you? We are a small place. This tragedy, what has happened to us, will not recover the generations. Kokani is already a dead town. I have a relative's son who died, my godfather's son, my neighbor's children from school, me personally, and we all are feeling like all our children have died.
As per reports, the club was in an old building that was previously a carpet warehouse and has been running for several years. North Macedonia's government has now ordered a sweeping inspection of all nightclubs and cabarets across the country.
And while Pope Francis continues to remain in the hospital.
The 88-year-old pontiff, who is being treated for double pneumonia at the Gemelli Hospital in Rome, has sent out a message. In his message, Pope Francis admitted he feels fragile and is facing a period of trial, but he also remained spiritually strong, saying our bodies are weak, but even like this, nothing can prevent us from loving, praying, giving ourselves and being for each other in faith's shining signs of hope.
Despite not yet appearing at the window of his hospital room, a group of well-wishers have been gathering outside the hospital, including children who brought what they called a hug of hope.
Caro Papa Francesco, noi bambini della diocesi di Avellino.
Dear Pope Francis, we children of the Diocese of Aversa, on behalf of all the children in the world, want to tell you that we need you and that you must come home soon. Children all over the world need your presence and your words. We children are your army of peace, and we want to keep walking with you. We love you very much, we pray for you every day, and with you we want peace for everyone. Goodbye, Pope Francis.
Preghiamo per te ogni giorno e con te vogliamo la pace per tutti. Ciao Papa Francesco.
And it's not just the little ones, even the thousands of runners taking part in this year's Rome Marathon paused for 42 seconds of silence to honor Pope Francis and wish him a speedy recovery.
See, 42 seconds for the Pope costs nothing, and it is beautiful.
The Pope was admitted to the hospital on February 14th with bronchitis, but doctors soon discovered he had pneumonia in both the lungs. He was also diagnosed with polymicrobial infection, and doctors say the Pope needs to remain in the hospital for an indefinite period.
Hundreds of demonstrators protest at a site earmarked for China's new embassy in London.
Their protest took place outside the Royal Mint Court. Take a look at this report for more.
Take down the CCP! Look how they funded projects.
Now, a rare sight has returned to California's Lake Berryessa for the first time since 2019.
The famous Glory Hole spillway is in full flow. Then this massive circular drain at Monticello Dam funnels excess water into Putra Creek when the lake level rises above 440 feet, located just east of Napa Valley. The lake is a crucial reservoir, providing water for about 500,000 people and supporting agriculture in Solano County. It's also a popular spot for boating, fishing and camping.
The spillway, 72 feet wide, is a design necessity. It was built in 1957 because the narrow valley could not support a traditional channel. The last time water poured into the drain was 4 years ago, and this year's winter rain pushed levels high enough to trigger the vortex.
Water has been swirling since the 4th of February and could stop next week unless fresh rainfall keeps it going. For now, it remains a fascinating spectacle, drawing visitors and creating a natural wonder in the heart of the wine country.
And well, it's now time for a quick short break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, we'll get you more on New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon is all set to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi today. The bilateral meet will see both the countries exchanging various memorandum of understanding.
Also on the other side, we bring you a full report of the latest from Balochistan, Pakistan. At least 11 people were killed and 21 were injured in a suicide bomb attack in this province of Pakistan. The Baloch Liberation Army BLA has claimed responsibility for carrying out the attack, targeting a convoy of the Pakistan Army. We'll bring you all the details on that front as well. This and a lot more lined up for you on the other side of the break. This is World DNA. Come right back.
Catch me on Token Money Magnet as I demystify tokenization for you, only on WION.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, world is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, world is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with me, Joseph Kumar, and my colleague Shivan Chana. Lots lined up on this side of World DNA. Let's begin with the headlines.
More than 200 alleged Venezuelan gang members deported from the US to a prison in El Salvador, despite a US judge blocking removals.
Houthis say ready to meet escalation with escalation as it claims to have attacked a U.S. aircraft carrier group in the Red Sea with a barrage of missiles and drones a day after airstrikes on Yemen killed at least 53.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says he is seeking to dismiss the head of Israel's internal security agency, Ronen Bar. Bar calls the move political, says the premier expects personal loyalty.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appoints a new chief of general staff as the country looks to restructure and strengthen its military amid ongoing combat in Russia's Kursk region and increasing pressure in Donetsk.
North Macedonia police detained 10 people after a fire at a nightclub, killed at least 59 and injured about 155 others.
India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval holds bilateral talks with U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, chairs a conclave of top global intelligence czars, focusing on ways to boost cooperation in dealing with various security challenges.
Vatican releases first photo of Pope Francis since he was hospitalized on the 14th of February. It shows the pontiff celebrating Mass in his hospital suite.
Tech stock valuations drop amid the market sell-off, but traders believe further declines are likely. The Magnificent Seven's earnings multiples hit their lowest since September, but remain above 2018 and 2022 lows.
Newcastle United have ended a 70-year wait for a domestic title. The Magpies defeated Liverpool 2-1 to lift the EFL Cup at Wembley.
Now, New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon will be meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi today.
Luxon, who is on his first official visit to India, will also inaugurate the 10th edition of the multilateral conference, the Raisina Dialogue. The New Zealand Prime Minister met India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar soon after reaching New Delhi on Sunday. The duo discussed a shared goal of a stable, secure and prosperous Indo-Pacific. Later in the day today, Prime Minister Luxon will visit the Gandhi Memorial at Rajghat.
Now, this will be followed by meetings with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Draupadi Murmu. The two countries are also expected to exchange several memorandum of understanding after their bilateral meeting.
Boosting bilateral trade features prominently on the visiting PM's agenda. India's Minister for Commerce and Industry, Piyush Goyal, and his New Zealand counterpart, Todd McClay, have already announced negotiations on a free trade agreement. Bilateral trade between India and New Zealand crossed the $1 billion mark in recent years.
Now, Luxon will also attend the 10th edition of the multilateral conference Raisina Dialogue as chief guest. Indian Prime Minister Modi is also scheduled to attend the inaugural session of the event that is organized by the Observer Research Foundation along with the Ministry of External Affairs. The New Zealand Prime Minister will leave for Mumbai later today to meet Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis. He will also interact with Indian business leaders and representatives from various sectors. Prime Minister Luxon leaves for New Zealand on Thursday.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi appeared on a 3-hour-long podcast with AI researcher and podcaster Lex Friedman, and that was aired on Sunday.
Now, in his second podcast appearance this year, the Indian Prime Minister spoke on a range of topics, including diplomacy and world leaders. On Delhi-Islamabad relations, Prime Minister Modi also said that Pakistan chose not to foster a harmonious coexistence. Listen to this excerpt.
As a visionary, what do you see as the path for friendship, for peace, for good relations between India and Pakistan?
I would like to delve into periods of our history the world may be unfamiliar with. Before 1947, during the struggle for independence, everyone was fighting side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And the nation was eagerly waiting to celebrate the freedom, the joy of independence. Now, we could have a lengthy discussion on what led to the events that unfolded. But the fact remains that the policymakers of the time agreed to India's partition. And they agreed to the Muslim side's demand of carving out a separate nation, with hearts weighed down by grief and silent tears. Indians embraced this painful reality. However, what unfolded was an immediate heartbreaking saga of bloodshed. Trains filled with bloodied, wounded people and corpses started arriving from Pakistan. It was a harrowing sight. After getting their own way, we expected them to live and let live, and yet they chose not to foster a harmonious coexistence. Time and again they decided to be at odds with India. They have waged a proxy war against us.
Shifting our focus to Pakistan, at least 11 have been killed and 21 injured in a suicide bomb attack in Balochistan province of the country.
The deaths include 9 Pakistani security personnel and 2 civilians. But Pakistani security forces, however, confirmed the deaths of only 3 security personnel and 2 civilians. Now, the Baloch Liberation Army, the BLA, has claimed responsibility for carrying out the attack targeting a convoy of the Pakistan Army in Noshki district of Balochistan.
BLA insurgents filmed the whole incident from the sides of the road. The BLA footage of the attack shows the incident as it unfolded.
Now, the suicide bomb attack on Pakistani forces took place when the convoy of security forces was travelling from Quetta to Taftan. Taftan is right at the border with Iran, and reports suggest there were 7 buses and 4 cars in that convoy when it came under attack at Noshki. A car laden with explosives hit one of the buses, leading to the explosion. Militants also used rocket-propelled grenades, RPGs, and improvised explosive devices, IEDs, to target the convoy of security forces.
Now, following the attack, 3 BLA militants have been killed in the operation launched by security forces in the district. The incident comes just days after a passenger train was hijacked in the province. And the countdown for final homecoming of NASA astronauts has begun. Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore are set to return to Earth after being stranded in space for over 9 months. These are the images, which you're going to see on your screens, of Williams dancing in joy as she and Wilmore welcome and hug their counterparts in zero gravity on International Space Station. The joy of the NASA astronauts peaked as their SpaceX Crew Dragon docked with the orbital outpost.
And Houston, thank you for tuning in this early morning. It was a wonderful day. Great to see our friends arrive. So thank you so much.
The SpaceX capsule delivered 4 astronauts to the International Space Station in a NASA crew swap mission that will allow a pair of astronauts to return home. The Crew 10 mission is a long-awaited first step to bring Wilmore and Williams back to Earth, and this is a part of a plan set by NASA last year that has been given greater urgency by President Trump since he took office in January.
Williams and Wilmore will now begin preparing for departure and their ocean splashdown off the Florida coast, no sooner than March 19th. There will be a 2-day handover, after which the old crew are due to begin their journey back to Earth.
Remember, what was supposed to be a quick 10-day routine mission turned out to be an extraordinary test of patience and resilience for these NASA astronauts who were eventually stranded there for over 9 months. And this is after the Boeing Starliner capsule failed to ferry them back home due to technical challenges in June last year. Their prolonged stay was significantly longer than the standard ISS rotation for astronauts of roughly 6 months.
Now, Boeing's troubles seem far from over as the American aerospace giant continues to grapple with safety failures, production caps, and a trust deficit.
Now, the company, once a symbol of aviation excellence, has been plagued by a series of high-profile incidents that have shaken confidence in its manufacturing standards. The latest setback came in January of last year when a mid-air emergency involving an Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 9 exposed critical lapses in quality control. Investigators found that the aircraft was missing key bolts, reigniting concerns over Boeing's ability to maintain safety in its assembly lines. This incident followed the tragic crashes of 2 737 MAX jets in 2018 and 2019, which led to the aircraft's temporary global grounding and extensive redesigns. The US government has taken a firm stance, imposing strict oversight on Boeing's production.
A cap of 38 aircraft per month remains in place, with regulators unwilling to loosen restrictions until the company demonstrates significant improvements. Despite efforts by Boeing's leadership to restore credibility, authorities remain skeptical. Boeing's woes extend beyond regulatory scrutiny.
In July, the company agreed to plead guilty to a criminal fraud conspiracy charge and pay over $240 million in penalties after breaching a deferred prosecution agreement. Accusations of poor record keeping and unsafe manufacturing practices have only fueled public distrust, while the company claims to be implementing necessary reforms. Skepticism lingers. The aerospace giant's reputation, once built on precision and safety, is now marred by a series of costly mistakes. The road to redemption remains steep, and until Boeing can prove that safety is truly its priority, the shadow of its past failures will continue to haunt its future. Well, for many, wealth looks like luxury cars, designer watches and oversized homes, but data suggests that the truly wealthy don't spend like this.
Absolutely. They take expensive watches. Research by the Millionaire Next Door found that half of millionaires have never spent more than $235 on a watch, and only 1% have spent over $15,000. Yet, in 2018, nearly 20% of Americans earning between $2,000 and $3,000 a month owned a Rolex. Luxury fashion follows the same pattern. Research shows 50% of millionaires have never spent over $399 on a suit, and only 10% have spent more than $300 on shoes. Meanwhile, financial expert Dave Ramsey notes that the typical millionaire lives in a modest home, drives a used car, and buys basic clothes. Well, the reason? Well, many wealthy individuals focus on financial security, while middle-class earners often stretch their budgets for status symbols.
Big-ticket purchases don't just drain bank accounts, they impact financial stability. Luxury cars are a prime example of that. A study by Experian Automotive found that 61% of wealthy individuals drive practical brands like Honda, Toyota or Ford, and yet nearly 10% of Americans earning under $100,000 own a luxury vehicle.
Well, then there's real estate. A large home may seem like a sign of success, but it often leads to financial strain. Warren Buffett, one of the world's richest men, still lives in the home he bought for $31,500 in 1958. While some billionaires own mansions, many self-made millionaires choose affordable homes that don't stretch their finances. Overspending does not end there.
Weddings have become a financial burden as well. The average American wedding costs over $30,000, with many couples going into debt. Yet some of the world's wealthiest people, like Mark Zuckerberg and Warren Buffett, opted for simple, intimate ceremonies. The difference between looking rich and being rich comes down to financial choices. Wealthy individuals prioritize savings, investments and assets over high-cost status symbols. And financial expert Morgan Housel sums it up, saying, and I quote here, "Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money." The middle-class spending trap isn't about income, it's about mindset. And those who focus on financial independence build long-term wealth, while those who chase status often find themselves financially stretched. At the end of the day, real wealth isn't about the watch you wear on your wrist, the logo on your clothes, or the car in your driveway. It's about financial freedom, the kind that lasts far beyond a fleeting purchase.